Atmen Sie ganz ruhig.
Breathe very calmly.
Ein
In
und auch aus.
and out again.
Versuchen Sie nicht, Ihre Gedanken zu ordnen.
Don't try to put your thoughts in order.
Lassen Sie sie einfach los.
Just let them go.
Und atmen Sie ganz tief.
And breathe in very deeply.
Ein
In
und aus.
and out.
Und wenn ich nun jetzt sage, da werden Sie die Augen öffnen.
And when I say now, you will open your eyes.
Jetzt. Ja, machen Sie die Augen wieder zu.
Yes, close your eyes again.
Gut, gut. Und nun gehen Sie doppelt so tief in Ihre Entspannung wie zuvor. Lassen Sie sich Zeit.
And now delve twice as deeply into your relaxed state than before. Take your time.
Ich führe dich jetzt zurück
I will now take you back
zu der Quelle,
to the source.
zu der Quelle deiner Angst.
The source of your fear.
Ich
I
werde dich leiten,
will guide you
Schritt
step
für Schritt,
by step,
Schritt
step
für Schritt,
by step,
bis hin zur Quelle deiner Angst, bis hin zur Wahrheit.
all the way to the source of your fear, to the truth.
We're flowing backwards in time now, listener. The digital corpus of late-stage capitalism sloughs its skin, spiderweb fissures cracking black mirrors, touchscreens shattering and falling away in a shower of glass and indium tin oxide. Mechanical and more rudimentary electrical machinery emerges from the molting epoch and zeitgeist. In a memorial grove in Sulla, Sweden, the ashes of a man rise up from the earth, spilling back into their urn. A funereal procession regresses towards Stockholm. A body is ejected from a cremation oven, made whole again. June 11th, 1979, the cadaver of a wiry 71-year-old serial killer with a quietly menacing look is reanimated into the Luciferian Tantric cloister of an apartment he calls home. He resumes nocturnally haunting his former hunting grounds. A visitation in the dark, a ghostly vision flitting away. Days and months are unmade. The reintegrated incarceree lurks around the site of a former magic circle weapon cache, a shed where a dog was once sacrificed in a blood ritual. Perhaps the aged serial killer is seeking out monies left over from one of his and his ring's bygone heists. The mastermind, long in the tooth but now shortening, reverses to Stockholm empty-handed. The acid-soaked ferment of the 60s fizzes past. The Swedish serial killer, Torneman, walks back into Säter mental institution for psychiatric criminals, and he whiles away the hours of his incarceration unlearning Sanskrit, Russian, and Latin on his bunk and at his desk. We're falling backwards through a technicolor Cold War now. Millions of people racing in reverse, away from coups, regime changes, war, genocide, the mushroom clouds shrinking down into a spore at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, rewound like an implosion of the imperial hegemon. The machinations, extraction, and depredations of American-helmed capitalism degrow before us. The end of history unravels into a sanguine thread. Back past VE Day, the red banner, adorned with the hammer and sickle, flies over the ruinous Reichstag, giving way to downfall. A cyanide pill and a slug pass from the bodies of Ava and Adolf as they stir and come to, or else are made manifest from some hidden passage by which they'd been spirited away. A tremulous, jittery Herr Hitler ascends backwards from the bunker. Phalanxes of duck-stepping SS commandos spread out over Europe. The bullets from Gewehr 41 and SVT rifles zipping home into their barrels. Holocaust gold and supplies flowing back across the border from Sweden to Germany and vice versa, the commerce of warfare. A much younger Tournemont, blonde and pallid, cracks German codes for the Swedish military intelligence from his psych hospital office, or perhaps vice versa. The earthquake of Europe on fire decrescendos into the sustained rumble of the early Lebensraum conquests of the Third Reich, quieting down to the foreshocks of the fascistic military displays along the thoroughfares of Berlin. On February 22nd, 1937, in Sweden, 5 members of the ritualized murder ring known as the Sala Gang or Magic Circle are ushered out of their prisons and asylum and unsentenced for their crimes. Their hypnotic chief, Tournemont, is languid and unbothered. The judge in his reverse interrogations studiously avoids the matter of the occult rhizome that tunnels from Sweden to Denmark and Germany like rat lines, and even beyond, of which these ritual murderers are just one node. The ink evaporates from the page of a report by the SS officer Walter Korody that gives credence to the theory, carried on the breath of rumors in Berlin, that a wannabe minister of the occult named Erik Jan Hanussen may have hypnotized an arsonist. A Dutch man named Marinus van der Lubbe sits slumped throughout his court case, his testimony robotic, unconcerned with his fate. In Sweden, investigators drag Tournemont through and away from the scenes of his various crimes as he rattles off the details of the quote-unquote perfect murders of which he was architect in reverse glossolalia. Newspaper headlines blare, Germany under attack, Chancellor Hitler coronated. A sudden conflagration at the Reichstag dims its blaze until, like some alchemical transmutation, the flames are liquefied, kerosene splashing off of the walls and into the can, carried by a blank-eyed Communist Youth Bund member from the Netherlands, once again named Marinus van der Lubbe. The hypnotist and telepath Hanussen extracts a prophecy from an actress he's put under during one of his demonstrations, leading her with his mesmerizing touch and influence to cry out, "A great house is on fire," 3 days prior to the Reichstag fire. Even further back, and Hitler is receiving lessons in hypnotic performance from the same hypnotist, publisher of occult periodicals, and sexual blackmailer, or at least per acclaim within the Walter Langer OSS psychoanalytic report on the Führer. The backwards montage is now quickening, snatches of action speeding across your mental screen. A train backs into a station. A young man in a suit is released from cops to say good hello to his girlfriend as they back away from a stakeout. Tournemont is laid down to rest on a couch by coppers as he stows a pistol beneath the sofa pillow below his head. Tips for law enforcement zip and zap back across the grapevine and out of the receiver into the mouth of a man who'd been asked to aid by the magic circle with a robbery, or another man who'd sold a small arsenal of guns, firearms, primarily hand, to the DMC. A bicycle courier is laying face down in a field, the banknotes littered about him, quivering in the wind. His half-dead body bounces up, and he runs backwards after a chasing assailant in a zoot suit, bullets dislodging from the courier's arm and torso and returning home to their chamber. A bag re-slings around his shoulder. It's stuffed with thousands of kroner in weekly wages. The courier stumbles and skips back onto a bike as his assailant leaps into a hot-wired gray Chevy, and they race backwards down a gravel road. Now, in your mind's eye, you see a hose snaking from a hole in a cabin wall to the exhaust pipe of another stolen vehicle. It's sucking carbon dioxide gas out of the cabin in which the slumbering body of another victim lies. Days prior, Tournemont tends to his homeopathy business in reverse. There are weapons and grenade tests by night in Sweden. The whistle and crack of Tournemont and his collaborators' bullets. Unfiring. A Nazi paramilitary disperses from a firing range in the Black Forest. Tournemont pulls half-burnt letters from a secret society from the fireplace in his parents' home and shoves them into his pockets. He hangs up on mysterious phone calls from a German Abwehr agent named Hans Link. In a forest near the lime works, the home of the overseer is unburnt before a hurried midnight raid. 2 men in policeman uniforms and a third slip out the front door. More armed robbery and geometric perfect murder plots, some abortive. The body of a taxi driver flies out of a creek and into the arms of 2 young magic circle cultists on the bridge above him. Tournemont and his increasingly incestuous group of friends perform séances in a basement at night, the clouded room slowly clearing itself of henbane incense. An insignia, an inverted triangle within a circle, evoking the dark goddess Kali, unscrawls itself off of a parchment page. In Sala, Sweden, a Tantra Theosophy and Luciferian inflected sect called the Magic Circle begins to dissemble. The friends diffuse out into various happenings and relationships. Electrical engineering, amateur hobby radio, hypnotic exhibitions by their quote-unquote Übermensch master Tournemont at their local secondary academy, feats of supernatural martial arts dissuading a neighborhood bully from fighting in a moment reminiscent of the Force or Systema, so on and so forth. Tournemont unrhapsodizes about a mob-inspired murder in the States. Newspaper clippings splayed out on a table before him at one of their séances. He unmuses how to kill is merely an alteration of matter, of the physical state. Atman cannot be destroyed, and so murder doesn't matter. Customers complain of having their minds read at Tournemont's father's haberdasher. Nightly psychic experiments by Red Lamp. Tantric Kundalini Yoga. At an exhibition in the early 20s, an ever younger Tournemont walks away from a strange Danish man with an elongated skull. A chance encounter with a practitioner of strange abilities that would forever alter the Swede's life, destroying others and bringing him irrevocably and forever out of the circle or into it in the process. That flat circle. Tournemont walks away from this devil in a guru disguise and into the mists of his adolescent life. His mother knowing by instinct when he'd return home. Visions of a misshapen and horrific homunculus. Back to an alcoholic military supplier of a father, and a far-sighted grandmother in the background, Tournemont shrinking and becoming more impish all the while. As his early 20th century childhood races away in reverse, until finally he shrivels into his mother's womb, reduced to fetal size, before he's torn asunder by that great chemical disunion, that unwedding of the yoni and linga, his essence split into its dual points of origin, from the one into the two. In other words, the triangle of life, and through the abyss of nothingness, until he shudders and coughs back to life on the floor of his Stockholm apartment, 71 years of age, completing this magic circle. Listener, if you haven't yet deduced it, we're plumbing the depths of a history perhaps unlike anything else you've ever heard today. A new joint series between the return of the repressed and ParaPower Mapping, titled The Magic Circle, Swedenborgian PTK, which takes a long, arresting look at a proto-programmed to kill case from the annals of Swedish history, linking evergreen PPM and ROTR topics such as the commingling of occult orders and intelligence in early modernity, cults, brainwashing, violent hypnosis for criminal purposes, if not intelligence and espionage ones, and the early days of the Third and Fourth Reichs. The serial murdering hypnotist Turnaman and his band of Luciferian Tantric cultists is a case study that G.H. Estabrooks, or the French hypnotists and psychologists of the Nancy School some 60 or 80 years earlier, might have called upon when evincing their arguments that hypnosis, in a Dr. Caligari fashion, can be used to turn a victim into a kind of automaton, unknowingly capable of criminal misdeeds. So gird your loins and sharpen your mind as we dive into this fascinating, ritualized Ripper saga from just below the land of the midnight sun.
Här kommer mörkret. När alla sover djupt av dagens förvärv. Då kommer natten. När du kommer ska jag sitta här och ta allt som du lever. Och när du går vet jag att du snart är här igen. Se staden lyser i alla regnbågens färger. Se staden lyser. Se alla människor som gråter, skrattar och lider. Här kommer natten. När du kommer ska jag sitta här och ta allt som du lever. Och när du går vet jag att du som är här igen.
I similarly, it's a ritual for me. Pre-recording, or really pre any kind of commitment, I try to use caffeine to put myself in the right place. It's a crutch, you know. I don't really, for sure. I don't trust my mind without it entirely. But there are some trade-offs.
I'm similar.
Yeah,
I got a pretty good stovetop espresso machines that you sort of
nice.
It's got like pretty strong pressure, so you can make like lattes with it as well if you want. Like you can steam milk and
how much PSI are we talking here?
I think you can go really high up. I didn't buy the indicator because I got it like second hand, so the indicator was missing. So I sort of just, you know, shoot from the hip, wait 30 seconds.
You're eyeballing the PSI.
Yeah. I look at sort of the pressure of the steam coming out, and then I turn that valve off, and I wait like between half a minute and a minute, and then it's usually pretty strong. So and it like
Okay.
makes an espresso.
And you're talking about when, like actually making the espresso itself or steaming the milk? Do you have both on board?
Yeah, I have both.
Okay,
So
nice.
yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I'm reliant on my handy dandy, old trusty mocha pot, and then I have a little milk frother receptacle that does my frothing.
Okay.
I would love to upgrade to a bona fide espresso machine, though. That would be really nice.
This
my
one
parents have one, but I don't.
okay, they've got like a full like automatic one, or is it also like a stovetop one?
I have I'm rocking with the stovetop. I'm sorry, I may have misunderstood. You're talking about, so you put yours on like a gas range. So basically you heat
I've got
it.
like one of those like it's an induction stove, so I got one of those bricks that you sort of put in between, so it like transfers the heat, and then you
Okay.
just put it on top. Well, I can show you what it looks like. It's I got it for free because the person who had it at the who was like cleaning out the house, he didn't know how it worked. So I just looked like on
That's nice.
I just looked on YouTube. It wasn't difficult at all. I can see like if you had no instruction. I mean, and the thing is, it's quite pricey. I think when I looked it up like on Amazon, even if you were to buy it like secondhand, you'd have to like put out at least $150 or something.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Let me see here. Yeah, so it looks like this, but I don't have the valve like the pressure indicator thing on the left.
You also just sent me a Google Maps link.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
the area. If you zoom out, you'll see Stockholm there, and like now maybe you get a feeling of like where it is. And then I guess you can do I mean, it was a lot less roads and a lot less urban development at that time, but you can look at, if you do textured map, you see like how much forest there is there. Like this is like, it's almost like a urban triangle in the middle of like an endless forest and loads of lakes and like rivers. So if you want, like after this it's just fucking forest to the like northwest, like for weeks.
And we're talking about the Sala area, not we're talking about our environs for today for this episode. Contrary to okay, and you live like, knowing a bit about your interests in like agriculture and the like. You live in a like kind of out in the country, right?
Yeah. Like up in the mountains.
In the mountains, even.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's like almost nobody here. It's like maybe a few hundred people in my village, and like mostly old people. Though there is a lot of like, it's either really old people or sort of small families with small kids who sort of escaped big city life, I guess, and wants to live like on the countryside. So it's a pretty nice mix. It's just not so many youths, maybe.
What would you say, like, an estimation of the population of the village is?
Less than 1,000, I would say.
I guess I've lived one place that's smaller than that in my 30 some years. We hail from the Midwest.
Looks like Fargo.
I've spent some time in some Fargo-esque places, I can tell you for sure. This one's a little further south, but actually Fargo, that kind of like northern plains, almost tundra-esque existence is one that I've lived that a little bit at one point.
After watching that show, I sort of, because there's a lot of like I think like a lot of Swedish people live in like sort of that area, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
Minnesota,
like, absolutely. Lots of Norwegian people. I'll probably cut this from the episode, but I will tell you that I am Dala horses, and
that's a good one already, though, because if you look on the map, right, and like if you get my sort of not theory, but like my suggestion that this is like the last, like it makes a triangle on the map, right? Which is if you have the texture or landscape, like so you can see where there's forest and when there's urbanization, you see that this is sort of the last. It's already half or more than half forest, but there is some urban construction to it. But if you look at sort of the left side of the triangle, it like just opens up to an endless forest that like there is nothing, like there will be like cities and stuff, but it's mainly forest to the west and northwest of here for like, I mean, even if you're going by foot, it can be weeks and months until you like get to somewhere. And then there's like the Norwegian mountains and everything. But that area to the west, that is like where the Dala horse is from. So if you go up the first big lake up there, where you see Mora and Orsa, maybe that is like sort of the area. And it's a kind of crucial place, right? Because you see that the highway goes along the coast, obviously, or like maybe that's not obvious, but it's obvious to Swedish people. Like that's where the big transport routes are. So this coming in from the dark forest from the west, if you were to go to Uppsala or Stockholm, means that it was like a very popular smuggling route. I don't know if I put that in.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's why it's already like sort of a themed place.
So our Sala locale was on a smuggling route out of Stockholm, and
into Stockholm.
Or into Stockholm. Okay, so coming from the other direction, from like, I mean, was this like a transnational one, like going all the way to Norway? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure. I think they were home brewing, like where the Dala horse is from, and further north, it's quite infamous for like home brewing. And there was
okay, yeah, that's interesting because I was. As I was like taking some notes earlier, I was thinking about the influence of American cultural exports and like gangster movies on Thurneman or however you pronounce the name,
I guess,
right? Tournaman.
Yeah, sure.
We'll workshop it. Yeah. Maybe by the end of the episode, I'll have something approximating a like not terrible pronunciation.
I think so.
But I was thinking about like bootleggers, Capone, and like that kind of Prohibition and early Depression era gangster ethos that was obviously like a source of inspiration for him. So it's interesting doubly now to think about the fact that Sala, maybe some of that in Sweden was coming through their community.
Yeah.
Or would you go that far?
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that's the suspicion. Even among the early, I think, theories of the police is that it has something to do with that.
Right, yeah.
And
you're right.
I can't remember. I think it's in 1940. It's around the First World War that we introduce not abolition like full on like you do, but we have something called the motbok, which was a sort of like a rationing out of alcohol, like not due to the fact that there was too little alcohol, but like to like sort of as a method of tackling alcoholism and
like half abstinence almost.
Yeah,
kind of like a.
I mean, you got like a certain amount of liters of like pure liquor that you were allowed like each week.
But they were trying to prevent binging, basically.
Yeah. And also
the binge.
Police. And also like I think I'm pretty certain that like the state already had monopoly on alcohol by this time. Like still in Sweden today, you can only buy alcohol in the state shop, right? Like not you.
Oh, interesting.
It's illegal to sell and buy like on your own.
Wow. Okay. So like locally owned, mom and pop shops, you're not going to walk into some like
no
gas station or something and be able to pick up like a 6-pack.
Yeah, if it's 3.5 alcohol, what we call folk beer, like people's beer, then you can buy it. Not in the gas station, but like in a mom and pop shop, you could buy it.
Okay.
Which
I mean, 3.5. That's still
yeah, you can get drunk.
That's noticeable. Yeah, you can get drunk on that. It just takes some time.
Especially when you're a teenager, there's nothing stopping you.
Oh, sure. No, that's for sure. Yeah, I have those memories of drinking, cases of very watery beer. Take a very long time, but you and all your buddies like the low alcohol content, natty ice, that kind of situation.
Yeah, just
back in
just
the
need
day.
dedication, I guess.
Yeah, I was also going to say, so I was struggling. My aphasia was totally kicking in, though I'm questioning whether this is even like a thing now. So is lutefisk actually Swedish, or is that?
Yeah, we
or
have,
do you not associate?
We have something similar, right? Like I think lutefisk is originally Norwegian, right, from the coast. Wait, let me look.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah,
but it says on Wikipedia that
it's not even actually Swedish.
Yeah, it says on Wikipedia that like it's kind of popular in all Nordic countries, but at least where I'm from, we don't usually have that for Christmas. We have like the more common one that everybody have, which is like pickled herring of various kinds. I think the Norwegians, that's at least my, like growing up, my feeling that they are more into lutefisk.
Which is lutefisk cod?
I think so. Some kind of whitefish, at least.
Yeah,
but it's seldomly like coated the way that you would get it in England, right? Like with fish and chips and stuff. It's a little bit healthier.
Oh yeah.
But it's kind of cool, like in Norway, slimy, because they have like that coast
cured in lye.
Oh yeah, true. They have some curing of it. Like you can get like special like memberships for like shops in Norway where they will call you up or like send you like a message on social media when they get like new catch of like special things, because I guess it's very random. Well, not random, but like they don't know for sure what they're gonna get like out there in the Nordic sea. So you can be like a member of these shops on the coast, and they will tell you like sort of what they have, and they have a lot of like strange things. Like I think there's some kind of like sea urchin looking animal that they make a sort of bouillon out of, or like a condiment.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's the thing is it's like it's called like the balls of the ocean or something, like in a phallic sense, like because it looks like just like a reproductive organ, right? Like it's and
seems apropos.
Yeah,
seems apropos.
Yeah. Right? But it's weird to like I don't know, have a bottle of like some brown stuff, and then it says that on the label, and it's like this makes everything better.
Yeah, condiments, they are kind of, there's a quintessentially like phallic vibe there even, but we don't need to overthink that.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
What I think like maybe should we because I realized you're recording already, so should we try to give should we give like the listener a little like intro to like what this is going to be about?
I'm all for it. Yeah, let's do it.
So I wrote like a content. Hopefully we'll get through like all of these parts today, which is like an intro. That would be the first part, and then like an account of the first murder and the immediate aftermath, like in the press and like witness accounts and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Then we introduce our main protagonist of the story, Sigvard Nilsson, who we already mentioned by another name because he becomes Tuneman, which is a name he picks himself, which some have suggested, like even some of the big like researchers have suggested that it's an anagram for manhunter. Then some of them have like withdrawn that statement because there's something, I think when he applied for it, he suggested that they didn't have to add the last E, I think, or something like that. He wanted it to be a German surname. That he was like he was more like familiar with German than he was with English. But I think it still sort of holds up, that theory. Like I would like it to anyway, because it becomes manhunter, and he does make allusions to that later in his like forensic psychiatric evaluation. He doesn't say it straight up, but we'll get to that later. Then there's like the fourth section would be like him meeting his guru. And then we get some, like, before it gets criminal proper, there's gonna be like some interesting séances with lethal outcomes, which we can speculate, what role do they play in the story as a whole.
Right.
Then there is like the sixth chapter would be the founding of the DMC, which is not the rap group. It's like the Swedish abbreviation of the magic circle. So maybe we should change it to TMC later.
Give me the pronunciation. So Den Magica Cirkeln, something like that?
Yeah, it's not,
how do we
not
do
far
it?
off. It's Den Magiska Cirkeln.
Cirkeln.
Yeah,
okay.
Magiska.
Den Magiska.
That's it.
Like
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Is that
Den Magiska Cirkeln.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cirkeln. Okay, right.
All right. And then I thought we end with like a cliffhanger, which is sort of like a question that you and me have been like battling with for the last like few weeks, which is, or like at least climaxing this last week, because we're realizing just what an enigmatic person this is. And this is the guru then, Dr. Andersen, whom the police never found. But
can I say straight off the bat that so Tourneman's sketch from his journal of Dr. Andersen,
right?
Like it looks like a gray, or it looks like it almost looks like one of those Fraternitas Saturni egregores, but with hair,
right.
almost like slightly coiffed hair. It is so,
it's the creepiest,
palpably
creepiest photo in
eerie,
that in that whole book. I sent that as soon as I saw it. I sent it to my cousin.
It's so scary, man. I mean, his physiognomy is crazy. Like that forehead. Talk about a like record-breaking forehead. You know what I mean?
And the skull is almost elongated, right? Like you say, like a gray.
Yeah, like a gray. It's
and then at the same time, it's not like just a big head, because also like his cheeks are a little bit like skinny, right? Like they're shaded in a way that it looks that he's undernourished, but then has this massive head, which like adds to the creepiness.
He almost has like a white person Jakob physiognomy,
something like that. Yeah.
No, I'm just joking, but no, it is really crazy.
And the very shaded eyes, so that it like sort of feels like they're very deep into his head, right?
Those bags are next level. It even like looking at it now, it kind of feels like he's he's not staring into you necessarily, because he's looking slightly off to the left, off the page, but the gaze is it has a like gravitational pull there. It's frightening.
Very much. I think you should put it up, or we both should put it up on the Patreon later for people to see it.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, we could include it in like the notes or something.
Yeah, that's a good point, and on Twitter and etc. Right. So so I have a little like a short intro, and then maybe you can. I was thinking I'll read the intro, and then we talk about it, because I'm sure we have like different. At least like these are going to be like hypotheses, right? Like we don't necessarily suggest that we're going to be correct in all things that we suggest here, but just sort of why we got interested in this, and like why we've been thinking about maybe to have this as a running series throughout the year. We'll see like when the next episode comes up, like how hard it is to find, because it seems pretty hard to find like information, especially for you in English, about like a lot of the characters in the story. And I think it feels like a lot of gumshoe work is needed in this story. So I think it'd be a great and like a really fun thing to have, at least somebody to work with on something like this, so that you can send each other info that you've come across, and then like we see how this develops, right? Like that was at least my
of course. Yeah, no, you're right that there are slight like impediments as far as research for me with on language barriers, and then also just like the dearth of like you know I can't get my hands on like the archival stuff in the same way that you probably could,
Yeah.
like being in Sweden. But one, and this is just tentative, but I think one way in which I maybe can be of use, and I'm feeling this increasingly with like and not to preempt our final chapter, but this enigmatic like guru
Hmm.
that kind of introduced our protagonist, or the figure, the central figure of this saga, to this putative, almost like tantric
Hmm.
Luciferian order.
Yeah.
Uh, that guy, I don't want to give away his identity
Yeah.
yet,
Let's keep it
but
for a bit.
I'm finding, yeah, we'll keep that under wraps until later, because also it's an open question, obviously. But I
Right.
think by some of those like some of those theories that have been thrown around, I think there's a lot of like additional, context regarding and like interlinks to different esoteric and occult orders from the early 20th century that could be worked in,
Yeah.
because like one of those individuals was in communication with like numerous different orders and founders of like the more kind of grifty pyramid scheming esque initiation by mail kind of
Hmm.
esoteric societies, and then the more like genuine highfalutin like truly initiatic order sorts of ones
Yeah.
too. So I think that could maybe
Yeah.
be one of the ways in which I can help is bring in some of that like additional color, even stuff that I've touched on in like past series. I'm starting to
Yeah.
realize could actually inform some of this too.
I think so too. Like, I think that's it's not necessarily a compliment, maybe, but like that's sort of why I thought this would be a great thing to do with you, because as odd it might seem, you will be like maybe one person in your research removed from all these shady characters. So I was thinking, like, yeah, having listened to your show for some time, that you have too much knowledge about esoteric circles during the turn of the last century, to a degree that it's unhealthy, which means very good research. Which,
Yeah, of course. This is the bane of all of us, right?
Mhm.
It's a balancing act that we all have to contend
Yeah.
with. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't necessarily feel that way, but but I think you're absolutely right that like there's a dichotomy there, or yeah, there's an interesting relationship between like research and then the way in which it can rabbit holes can very quickly become unhealthy. It's true.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's also like difficult because you're always wondering, like, how serious are we gonna like take a person like this, right? Like Tuneman, like he seems to be like a professional liar, right? And then
Right, right, of
yeah,
course, yeah.
and then like
Yeah, that seems like one of the integral
mhm.
questions that we have to contend with for
But
sure.
then at the same time, the very reason that we actually do take him serious is that people died. So it's not just talk, which
Right.
makes it occult, I guess. Like that is the foundation of it all. Um, yeah.
Nailed on cult for
Hmm.
sure. Yeah, and like you're saying, the even though there seems like there's some
Hmm.
obfuscation going
That's
on,
right.
and we're also going to talk about how like there are these intelligence links to, and ties to intelligence and espionage activities in Sweden
Hmm.
too, which brings with it a degree of murkiness, which I also like. For me, just like a general point, it I almost feel like every time I do one of these kinds of dives into a like early 20th century occult figure like this, invariably you end up learning that there's a decent chance the person was a
Right.
spy.
Right.
It it almost seems like not quite a universal law, but it's just like the frequency of that is almost laughable, you know, for whatever reason. In like the mid, the years between the two world wars, especially.
We should definitely try to like. I've tried before to begin to sort of suss out the theory to why that is. Like the obvious reasons is of course that they work with shivers and ways of occulting and not wanting to be public. They have a reason not to be public, because their opinions are the opinions of a minority, right? And they cannot publicly express what it is that they want to do, and all these things are or these qualities of communication are things that both intelligence and secret societies share, I guess. So they will, there will be like a dialectic between them, and then we'll see like by the 1930s, since I mean that is a thing that goes back deep into the 1800s. We'll see like here in the 1930s, like to what degree can we say that one is dominant and the other is a sort of like a rest product almost of like the organization of the one, like be it intelligence being a consequence of occult esoteric secret societies by influentially like politically and economically influential men, and to what degree the organization of intelligence by state apparatuses also sort of produces outside of the official state apparatus a wish or a need for them to engage in ways that they don't want to maybe report to their superiors or have any like governmental records of, and so on and so on. I think that's what makes it interesting.
Like informal compartmentalization almost, like under the radar. I think maybe not to get too far off onto a tangent, but like I think some of it, just to float like a theory or two, one would be convenience, and then I think there's like you were saying, you were talking about some of the material and historical continuities from and the way in which like there seems to be a direct lineage from like older occult orders feeding into modern day intelligence agencies. Maybe I would say that like this period in the early 20th century was kind of a cusp. It was a time when some of those older forms of like parastate connection and organizing hadn't yet quite become outmoded, but they would
I see what you mean,
obviously. Because they would be usurped by the intelligence agencies of today and other like secular kinds of front organizations. Though there's still this dynamic, like with the prevalence of like missionaries and wandering bishops and the interplay there.
I guess they just have,
so it hasn't gone away entirely, but yeah, I think some of it's about cover too, obviously.
Yeah, I guess like what's interesting about this period, as you say, like this cusp aspect to it, is that if we are suggesting these two seemingly separate ways of organizing, we can see how like the secular state apparatus might be more interested in modernizing certain aspects of what has been like they would like to maybe pick out what is it that functions of your magic, of your way of swearing in people to keep their mouths shut, influencing people in a way to have them do things that they don't want to do. All of these things I'm sure they would be interested in, and what we could assume would have initially been some kind of purely satanic or Luciferian wish to just spread terror, they can also start to sort of modify it for more political gains, I guess, like sort of purify it in a way. But in the end of the day, even terror for them would be, also maybe already political as it is, you know, like we know that from like the satanic scare and things like that.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that a lot of that stuff was, so there would have been innovations, and then it was also like repackaged, and this is how we come to see, you know, kind of minor figures, though still consequential, like Michael Aquino, you know, and his influence on like psychological warfare
Right.
and psychological operations, where he's pulling from all of these kinds of, you know, like centuries old esoteric traditions, which are directly informing his thinking when it comes to, you know, these different ways of like affecting the material world through, you know, psyoping people and essentially changing their thinking, right? And so there are kind of like magical precepts like at play there, even. But that still is kind of like an example of the way in which this, you know,
where it's going.
These things are like modernized, like you're saying, right? Yeah.
All right. I mean, that's a great point. So I think we even have a reference to him like towards the very end, or like a very close one at least. But so like what we're going to like talk about today, so that like finally the listener will get like some skin or like some steady ground and on. It's an occult series then of hypnotic murders that took place in the Swedish inland during the 1930s. This is a part of Sweden traditionally called Västmanland, which means literally land of the Western men. So these Western men, I think it's even like mentioned like in Bronze Age, like at least in like around Viking time, early medieval days. Like it's simply the people living to the west of Uppland, which is like the core province of early Sweden. With connection to the Baltic Sea coast, where you find both Stockholm and Uppsala. And I guess Stockholm is the most known because it's the capital, right? And it becomes early on like a political and economical hub, whereas Uppsala is older, so it has a certain more like you would have to say like occult origins of like, you know, big Viking sacrifices like blots and things like that, but also a very old like academic lineage that Stockholm doesn't have, and we'll see like, you know, some references to this as well. But like, so imagine. Considering what we said about the map earlier, imagine going west from Stockholm and Uppsala, and you have like the dark forest there, and this is where things are taking place. And the main city, it's not the biggest city, but it's the main city for our investigation and the sort of scene of these events, is Sala. And Sala was once upon a time one of the 5 biggest silver mines of Europe, and it paid, you know, a substantial part of the mercenaries that fought during the 30-year-old war back in the 1600s. And despite that, the city is not very big, and at the time of our events, it has a population of about 8,000. So it's just around sort of that level where like kind of everybody knows everybody, or at like, you know somebody who knows somebody. It's hard to, I think, disappear in a crowd of 8,000 in a village like this, isolated as it were, which will play in as well. Yeah.
So in some ways, it makes their like 6 years of quote unquote terror and the fact that they did like effectively evade the police, though obviously like we'll get to how they may have had a man or two on the inside, right? Which is also an interesting dynamic, but it almost makes it all the more impressive.
I think so.
Right, like the fact that that there were only 8,000 people approximately.
And we will see that also, like, people aren't stupid, right? Like there's definitely something to this suggestion of like some kind of maybe inside help, because I mean there were people who were like, I mean these guys are weird as fuck, you know, like we know them, like, and now all these strange things are happening. But we'll get to that later, like that there were people maybe onto something way earlier than like the official story eventually breaks.
I think even a couple like anonymous letters that were ignored.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it's pretty interesting. But yeah, we'll hit that later.
So to get this like historical feeling and geographical feeling, then like the same year as our main protagonist was born, the mine was finally closed after more than 500 years. So of course this had been coming for quite some time, like the 30-year-old war is a long time gone, and so are the peak years. After all, centuries passed by then, and the image that is sort of developed of the city by beckoning photography, letters, reports, in the newspapers, as well as some artists passing by. Like we have an account of like H.C. Andersen, the famous Danish storyteller, right? Who I don't know how popular he is in America. Do you know him?
Hans Christian, right?
Yeah,
of course.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Though I mean, I'm certain that many Americans wouldn't.
Maybe they get the Disney versions of it. I'm sure there are some.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
So you have these reports of this city like at the end of the 19th century, and it's not necessarily that of a ghost town, but it nonetheless has this sort of existence in a forgotten part of the world where it's left to its own Proustian atmosphere, being in search of a time that had most definitely passed. Nonetheless, like having said that, there are some few details that should be mentioned about like the greater area, which will explain to us how this triangle of Sala, Köping, Enköping, and Västerås, which we should give out a map of it as well, so people can like get a better picture. These four towns are all originally like medieval, either towns or villages from around the 12th century. And they were nonetheless shedding their old skins and would play a role in this, Scandinavian Lutheran peasant society. In many ways, one of the most juridically conservative in Europe at this time. Like land ownership is not like it's still very aristocratic land ownership in Sweden at this time, and it still is today. Like you still have people just renting land from aristocrats, even though like aristocrats are abolished as a class, as members of the House of Knights in Sweden today. And I mean, this was gotten rid of in many other parts of Europe by this time. Like in Denmark, it's early 1800, I think. France, obviously, during the Revolution, at the end of the 1700s, and so on. But in Sweden, it never really did disappear, which might explain why it's also transformed into an industrial powerhouse, like that we had a more like bourgeois aristocracy or a greater maybe communication between them. But that's like an economic theory for another time. But it's still important, I think, to not just imagine, a ghost town or like we were talking about earlier, almost this abandoned steppe of like Minnesota with abandoned buildings, or I don't know what's it called, the famous place in America, Alpaccia, right? It's sort of like
the Appalachians.
Appalachians, yeah. It's nothing like that. Like it's actually becoming it's trying to become like an industrial place at this time. And so I think one
circa the action,
exactly,
of what they were, contrary to the present day. You're saying. Okay.
Yeah, I mean there is still today. It's one of the biggest. So I wanted you to go. Yeah, like we can take this as an example, right? Like to understand, like if we also suggest some heavy industrial influence in these events, that somebody might have been interested in shocking people into a new way of life, right? Like because mainly people are peasants at the time, and now they're expected to work in these new industries. How are they going to accept, urbanization? Well, I mean, if you're absolutely terrified of living on your own farm outside of the centers, and you feel almost compelled, to move into the city and start working in the industry instead, it would be a great thing to have events like this, which almost always targets very secluded farms on the outskirts of these bigger cities. Again, an early theory, but one that might, might not convince you, but like definitely makes you think it's more possible. Did you look up this company, Cloney, like the ASEA?
So is this connected to Siemens?
Yeah, it seems
okay.
later, but it's not. They merge, I think, in the 70s or 80s with a Swiss company, which is like on the same. It's like insofar that slave labor in concentration camps go. That Swiss company was on, same attitude towards such profit extraction as Siemens. Like they also had that going on. Not so much information about what these people were up to, the Swedish company, which before they merged with them. But if you go like on Swedish Wikipedia, like just change the language, right? I will do it.
Oh yeah.
And we'd like just make sure it's not some other. Yeah, if you search ASEA and we scroll down, there's some fellas here, some picture of early like factory work and stuff. And do you get ASEA 1910 to 1923? Do you see that the first historical topic, or the second one?
Oh, I'm seeing that they were using a swastika logo.
On a runestone, right?
Yeah, from the late 19th century until 1933. Yeah, and this is, so the translation is General Swedish Electrical Limited Company. Is that correct?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Limited, does that mean, so aktie means stock in Swedish. Is limited, does that mean that it's publicly traded or privately traded?
Good question. This is outside my wheelhouse.
But I think at least this is publicly traded. That's what it's meant by aktiebolag. And allmänna means public or yeah. So it's sort of like the Swedish.
A limited company is a general term for a type of business organization wherein owners' assets and income are separate and distinct from the company's assets and income.
Okay.
So basically, it's the same thing. I guess it's similar to like LLC or limited liability corporation, I guess.
Yeah, it could be.
It's comparable.
I've thought about it as a Swedish version to maybe General Electrics would be a comparison, but like a smaller.
That seems like a good touch point.
Of course, as always, when there are like industrialists using the swastika, and here clearly in an Aryo-heroic setting, right, with the runestone and the font of like these are the exact fonts that the Lebensreform, like the Völkisch movement that wanted to recreate, like a new Aryan identity. This is like how they would make a poster, right? But of course, like the official story is that they removed the swastika in 1933 when the Nazis came to power. But that doesn't mean anything. It might just mean that they didn't agree with that particular, Aryo-heroic forward movement, like of having the Nazis. Like maybe they felt that was too vulgar or something, which was a common like critique, right, of Nazis, or like fascists of Nazis.
Or could it have even had something to do with like neutrality and it just being like a strategic business decision or something, where they're trying not to like appear like sympathizers so as not to alienate portions of the Swedish public?
I think so. That makes sense, because that's sort of like what's suggested also in the reason, right, that it became impossible for them to have it. That might just mean that it's like a legal issue, because there was no, like, all these friends of Germany in Sweden at the time had as of yet no reason to explain away their German friendship in 1933. They've just gotten to power. There's like no indication that there's nothing wrong with fascism. It's the general concept.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So it might just be a legal thing as well, and as you say, neutrality, etc., etc. But this is a big one, and since we're going to have like a lot of connections of like you mentioned earlier, Siemens, and a lot of members of this group will be electricians as well, and like radio operators. and
Yeah.
we need to make some kind of theory about that as we go along. But okay, I will continue here with the story.
Oh, can I just add
Go
two
ahead.
things as far as ASEA? It's also notable that they apparently, per your, though I don't know if this is the English language or the Swedish Wikipedia entry, but they created the first industrial diamonds,
Yeah, I
apparently.
heard that too.
And they also like incorporated industrial robots all the way back in 1974 too, which is like that seems like pretty early, right?
And it's always like we say industrial diamonds, but we've already talked about smuggling and stuff, which makes me also wonder, I don't know if there ever was a sort of big movement of forgery when the industrial diamonds first came onto the scene, because if you have people who don't even know that is possible, which I'm sure this must have been kept as a secret for a long time, because it's like a major industrial breakthrough, right? And you do not want other people to be able to do it at the same time.
Right. Stands it could devalue diamonds like across the board,
Yeah.
right? Like it's threatening to the industry. Which is, I think, part of the reason why they've always been like people have been propagandized into believing that the like artificial diamonds are less valuable, less precious, right? Because it's like the vested diamond heir like interests don't want their you know their diamonds to be devalued.
Right. But actually, like phenomenologically, if we want to put it like that, anybody looking at an industrial diamond in the 1930s or in the 1920s would have thought that this is a very pure diamond. Like this must be an especially expensive diamond, right? Because they are often clearer and with less cloud in them, right? Than natural diamonds. Like they will look, according to like bog standard appreciation of this kind of aesthetic, as a more fancy object. It would be my guess.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's almost like there's a even more precision almost.
In the
But I
cutting,
am
right?
not an expert on like in the cutting at least. But I don't know a ton about.
But I mean, I think this would definitely not have been something that I don't think that they produced them to improve other industries. I think that if we're like going with this thing that it must have been a secret in the beginning, I'm sure that because they're an electric company, right? Like they're not an industrial diamond trader, so they must have used it for themselves, and maybe there was no need for them to disclose that, because it's an industrial secret that gives them an edge in their production of other equipment, becoming more precise, like the electric ware that they sell. Yeah, it's definitely like an interesting point to this story. I think like that can just be in the background, sort of.
Yeah, just to clarify though, to my knowledge, though they may have had that like capacity or technology earlier, but this is saying 1953 as far as when. So I don't think it intersects with like our.
I see. Yeah.
But I'm not certain, of course. I mean, like going off of Wikipedia is infamously unreliable. Plus, like you were saying, there could have been some kind of like industrial secret, like maybe they had been working on it, researching the production of industrial diamonds for electrical purposes for like decades prior to that.
No, I mean, I definitely, like in general, I know that the development of industrial diamonds already had some other breakthroughs like towards the end of the 1800s. So, but it's always a question of like scale, right? And industrial productivity and things like that. You have the same thing with like, I mean, almost any of the big breakthroughs at this time, like artificial or synthetic fertilizer, possible along, it's possible way earlier, but like it's the level of being able to mass produce something, which I think are the big
right.
Anyway, so and what's interesting there, like having this topic then about general public knowledge, we know that very few also initially knew that these killings and robberies that terrorized this rural community to the brink of insanity over a 6-7 year period were connected, like so that they were performed by the same organization wasn't anything public. And
Mm-hmm.
once the terror reached its catharsis and the serial killers were caught, they were given this name Sala Gang, or the Sala Gang of the city, obviously, by the press. Again, this wasn't a name that they gave to themselves, but and that's the thing, right? That also very few initially knew that there was an actual group behind the Sala Gang that lurked, like a multi-layered secret society network structured by dark political forces, which drew, as we've suggested already, inspiration from Hinduism, Swedenborgianism, Theosophy, and Luciferianism, in an attempt to produce a very perverse interpretation of yoga that laid emphasis on hypnosis, thought transfer, and an experimental exploration of different kinds of suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
We will see actually that around this time, today we often think, I assume that most of us, we think that suggestion is almost synonymous with hypnosis. But at this time, I think some of the early, slightly before, but we'll get there later, some of the early work of, in theory and practice, to sort of combine suggestion and hypnosis are taking place.
Yeah. On that point, one of the proposed, or I don't know if it was a proposed identity for Tourneman's guru, but they at one point they enlisted or communicated with the state or maybe political police. I can't remember exactly, in Germany,
The
but
Abwehr?
the Swedish authorities. Not the Abwehr, but another I'm assuming National Police Department.
Yeah.
I can't remember the German name this second off the top of my head. I'd have to pull the passage.
Yeah.
But I recall that the Swedish authorities enlisted their help to try and locate a Dr. Anderson, which is the pseudonym for this individual, right, that we're going to introduce here in a moment, who was kind of the dark ascended master for Tourneman, the the organizer and conspirator of these ritual murders. Well, apparently, and I found this very interesting, and I was trying to, because it was sussing me out a little bit and making me even wonder about like alternate identities for this individual. But I don't want to go there yet. But apparently, the German authorities replied and said that this Dr. Anderson, and I've been trying to locate this text, but they said that there was a Dr. Anderson who had published a book called Hypnosis or Hypnose und Suggestion or something like that, like in the German. Yeah, and but apparently it wasn't the, not their, well, I guess in some ways, like in a roundabout or by a degree of separation, like culprit. I mean, the Dr. Anderson obviously was just like a person of interest, contrary to a suspect, but they were still investigating him, right? But so apparently nothing came of that, or for some reason they found that like information like contradictory to the profile that they had been building. But I still found that very interesting that there's this other Dr. Anderson. So that's and it also made me think of Erik Jan Hanussen as well, because he similarly, like, and at first I was like, that's not the name of Hanussen's book on like magic and hypnosis, is it? I don't believe it is. I think I was finding primarily English translations of it, so I'm not sure what the German is, but I know that he published one book on like his stage hypnosis and another one maybe on mind reading, if I remember correctly, like around the same time. But part of the reason why I was thinking that maybe there could be something there, or I was like momentarily conflating it, is because he had also, if my memory serves, he directed a short film that was literally just called Hypnose, I think, like Hypnose too. So
that's interesting, because a lot of the Danish, or not a lot, but we're gonna find also some Danish people who are also in the movie industry later. Like mainly like the photos that I sent to you of like that other guy with the snake, the white fakir. I think those are like from a set, like of a famous movie. I've been trying to get my hands on the film. And
wait a sec. Wait. A white fakir?
Yeah. That was like his nickname.
That actually, dude. Okay, now I'm genuinely wondering if there is an Hanussen intersection here, because one of the movies that he made, and so for listeners who haven't listened to the PPM series on Erik Jan Hanussen, this is a crucial piece of information.
That's the one you did with
pretended
with Things Observed, right?
Yeah, with Things Observed with Luke Marshall. It was actually the last Things Observed series. Okay. Like the last thing Luke did before he started podcasting. Yeah. But yeah, so we did that together, and in just so folks know, to refresh memories, Erik Jan Hanussen assumed the identity. He pretended to be a Danish prince or Danish nobility. Okay. So his pseudonym involved him posing as this, I think, Danish prince or a descendant.
Very Shakespearean in a way, I guess.
Oh, very, yeah, definitely. But to the point of what you just brought up, so like, I'm not sure. I feel like I missed those pictures that you're describing. I don't know that I've seen them yet. But
maybe they are.
But one of his,
they're in the broken latter parts of the text that I made, like that is like not organized yet.
Okay, got it. Yeah, because
Louis Brinkfjord, the white fakir. If you search, I put that in the. Yeah, you can see.
Interesting. Very interesting. Right. Okay. Yeah, because in Hanussen's, like one of the few movies that he made, because he was also involved, like he had a brief directorial career, early in like silent, Weimar era cinema. Yeah. He made a movie that involves, it's almost Dr. like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari or Dr. Mabuse Coded.
Oh, really?
This movie that involves an Indian fakir who has powers of hypnosis, who is using his hypnosis to enslave sex slaves, like this damsel in distress, which is very interesting because Hanussen was a sexual blackmailer of much repute. He was like, you know, both.
He would play games like which he called like white slavery games already when they were like teenagers, which is just weird.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, he was really depraved. He like at one point he pimped out speaking of like fakirs, he had an Indian helper, this young, like I think pubescent or like prepubescent boy who would work on his yacht essentially, and he would throw these yacht parties for like Nazi party officials, almost in this like proto like Robert Maxwell fashion.
Hanussen would.
Right? Yeah, Hanussen would, and he would throw these sex parties on his yacht. And at one point, this Indian like towel boy ended up being beat by this like, you know, BDSM like very sadistic.
Oh yeah, yes, I remember this
Nazi
episode.
Party official. Yeah. So that's all. Those are some interesting symmetries.
Yeah, and this is actually not our main Danish guy, but on 2 occasions Tuneman mentioned this person as being a member, both to his mother, who repeats this name in a confession, I think, and also in his own confession to his forensic psychiatrist. This name is mentioned. And so this is not, at least according to those statements, this is not Dr. Andersen. This is somebody who is mentioned by name, even though I think this is also maybe a pseudonym, but by no means a secret pseudonym. Like it's public knowledge that this is this person, since he later would be in movies and stuff like that. But they're...
very interesting.
Yeah. And it fits that he should be a member, like... but like I think that's for like episode 2, like when we get deeper into like those inner circles of this magic circle, like what we assume to be those inner circles at least. But that's, I know, like this Hanussen connection is, I think, from what you've told me and from what I could also like remember from your episode, I need to like go and listen to that again. It's interesting because
it's been a long time.
Of like there we have another reason maybe for the lying, for the pseudonyms, and like cover up, because as you said there with the that they had already enlisted somebody named Andersen or Andersen, and later suggesting that this is not the same person, maybe maybe it's an overlap of pseudonyms that they don't want to break, for example, like because Hanussen worked for German intelligence, right, at one point.
Oh, absolutely. So he was vying to be he wanted to be Hitler's occult minister.
Okay.
And so kind of as Luke and I, by the end of our series, we came to realize that it appears that Hanussen he was a asset for the SIS, the British Secret Service. He was connected to this tobacco limited company at one point by way of this Austrian tobacco magnate Hans Hauser, who he was hypnotizing. As I remember, I think the name is Hans Hauser. He was definitely hypnotizing this guy. I don't have the Hanussen notes in front of me.
Like a Viennese industrialist.
Yes, someone from the, what had been the Austro-Hungarian Empire, I think from Vienna, though maybe a different part, that he got connected with initially because the man enlisted his help in, he believed that he was like insufflating his food when he was eating. And so Hanussen hypnotized him to help him eat so that he wouldn't choke on his food. Okay. And then he enlisted him in traveling to, I think, to Greece and Turkey. They were doing arms dealing, like prior to a conflagration that the British were. I think the British were kind of playing, the Greeks and the Turks off of each other at that time on like a geopolitical level. So
on like a national scale, like quite
Yeah, so Hanussen was definitely, and there's also, like, we got into some we started to build some evidence that indicated that he was connected to Crowley as well, and may have even overlapped with Crowley in Cairo. Like the two of them were in Cairo at the very same time. It's not definitive, but like we were comparing and contrasting their accounts of their travels, and it looks like the travels could have lined up with Crowley being, you know,
it makes
an agent,
sense, right? Like because the OTO starts off as a Viennese secret society, right? Like which he later joins, and it's also created by like
and
Austrian, Hungarian industrialists. So that would be
right. And Theodore Royce is going to connect to all of this too, because one of the prospective, you know, individuals that we can theorize may have been Thurneman's like guru or master was a member of the OTO as well, and was connected to Royce. So like all of this larger like nexus, it all like coheres in a major
way. I was
way.
thinking we need to make like that's why like the lower part of this script is so broken up. I thought that we should really try to make like a pinboard, like an interactive one. I think I suggested that program to you. And let's try to make, you know, with faces and names of some of those Austrian secret societies made by these industrialists, and try to like show a rudimentary map of like who's connected there, because they change a lot of names and there's so many names. And then
we should network graph it out. The one thing, just to get it on the board though, since I started to like kind of foreshadow it, as far as the one other symmetry between Thurneman and Hanussen. So like Hanussen obviously was a very seemingly effective hypnotist and, you know, stage like performer and illusionist and the like, though more so the hypnosis and like telepathy and mind reading and the like, but Hanussen, so like I was saying, he worked with seemingly he worked with British intelligence, and he worked with the Nazis, and may have even been like he may have been a double agent, right? Like infiltrating the Nazis on behalf of the British, or vice versa. But he also was connected to like Zionist organizations and congresses, and traveled to Israel too. Wow. So he was like one of your like prior, I mean, mandatory Palestine, obviously. He was in mandatory Palestine during that same time when he was voyaging and doing all of this like seemingly British intelligence work with this SIS front. I see. So yeah, he was connected. So he's almost like your like prototypical like Zio-Nazi. In when it's like a perfect encapsulation of some of those like very, you know, complicated
with a very Kabbalistic bent as well.
Right. And so that's kind of comparable to Thurneman, because like as we find out, he may have been tied to both Brits, German intelligence, Abwehr, right? And the Swedish intelligence services too, right? So you have three in each instance, seemingly.
Yeah, we're gonna get like the same geometric shape, I think, like where we.
And that's a great point. That's a great point. Three is like the prime number for the magic circle, right?
Yeah. Very tantric. All right, so the end here, like of the intro, I also mentioned, like, you know, what you already mentioned, this Das Kabinettes Caligari, right? Like the famous 1920 German expressionism film, which is sort of like, at least to my knowledge, the first filmatization of like the concept of PTK, right? I don't know any earlier instance of this taking place, but like if you wanted to be historical about it, in that, I don't know how long ago it was since you watched that film, so I don't blame you for not remembering this, but when I watched it just this summer, there is a reference in the movie to the area around Sala, so Uppsala, right? Like an hour away by car. And it's not just any, reference. It's the actual like reference of where did Dr. Caligari learn to hypnotize people to kill other people. Well, he learned it from like these old, like, they don't say by name Swedenborg or the original Atlantis researcher Rudbeck the Younger, who is contemporary with Swedenborg during like the 1600s end. But it's like it's from the exact same time period, and it's in Uppsala, so it cannot be, to my knowledge of the history of ideas of these sort of things, I don't see how it could be anybody else. But I just they don't want to drag them through the mud. And it's also more difficult with these early people to know exactly what they were up to, obviously, because it's so long ago. But that is an interesting mention, which is interesting.
Yeah, that's very fascinating.
And it also explains to us, I think, why it's not so unlikely. Like, I don't know if there are any new listeners who are very unfamiliar with, with our methods and like our topics of interest, but I can see how a normal person who just stumbled into this show for whatever reason might be very questioning, like, why is there this kind of yogic, hypnotic, interest in a young teenager on the, farmer countryside of Sweden at the turn of the last century? Like, it seems like so out of place, right? Like, I mean, it seems like a very cosmopolitan thing to be interested in. But it's not actually not that strange that like he would have all these interests at a young age, right? Because it's popular stuff. Like
like he was reading like Theosophical Society tracts, and I know that he read Isis Unveiled by Blavatsky, right? Those were like some of his like introductions to like esotericism and occultism. And then I would also assume that he probably could have like come into contact with like texts mentioning like Mesmer, Swedenborg, of course, like you're pointing out. There would it would be highly likely that he could have had like a familiarity at even a very young age. Like you're saying,
it's like part of the zeitgeist at this moment, like, which maybe we're not often so familiar with, that it was such a popular thing, like this kind of Indomania. It's we'll talk a little bit about more like about that, like I think later, like who were exactly his influences. Like Blavatsky is obviously like it comes right off the bat, right? Like it does. It's almost like you don't have to mention it. But like we'll see, because he made a bibliography.
No, it's funny how they disown him though at the end is also
right like
an interesting little
the official letters from the Theosophical
press office. The press office, they're like, we have nothing to do with this guy. and a lot of it comes down to the fact that he doesn't, the DMC insignia lacks the upward facing triangle, right? They're like they do this like symbological reading of it.
That's funny.
Like, they're like, this guy, he's just satanic because he only has the downward facing triangle. We've got both of them.
That shouldn't hold up in court, man. That shouldn't hold up. Oh shit.
Can I just quickly mention just one other comparison,
for sure.
Since we touched on the Caligari thing? I
this is the early loose hypothesis arena, so go for it.
Okay. So I just also wanted to give a little more context as far as Dr. Mabuse as well, which I would say is in the same like pantheon or like corpus of these kinds
subgenre
of like early 20th century subgenre of sissy hypno films, right? But yeah, so like this saga also makes me think of Fritz Lang's Dr. Mabuse the Gambler and the Testament of Dr. Mabuse. And one of the parallels that I would want to illustrate for the listener as far as Tournament is concerned is like his criminal intent and the hypnosis as well. But Dr. Mabuse is a character originally conceived by the Luxembourgish author Norbert Jacques, And akin to our ritual killing antagonist or protagonist here, the character of Dr. Mabuse is a frighteningly effective telepathic hypnotist and master of disguise, which, like also the Sala gang, they use a lot of disguises as well. And he specializes in body transference, almost this like quasi like demonic human form of possession, which smacks of Tournemans. Like, this is also a funny point. Tourneman, prior to like founding the DMC, he starts this almost like hypnosis breakfast club where he's like hypnotizing like his schoolmates and like the youths of like Sala, like cousins and stuff. But they're doing it before school, as I remember it in the text, which is funny. And then eventually the magical circle as well. But so the thing with Mabuse, though, is that his grand vision involves the creation of like a criminogenic society surpassing that of like, rote like liberal capitalism. He harnesses his genius for the purpose of creating this quote unquote society of crime. This storyline in the Testament is in part a comment by Lang on the rise of the Third Reich, of course, which, like the Testament of Dr. Mabuse, would have come out smack dab, like in the middle of the Magic Circle terror in 1933. So yeah, it just feels a little evocative of Tourneman's obsession with the quote unquote perfect crime. Which I know you already brought up. Like he has this like this geometrical hard on for like committing the perfect
the
like
beauty
ritualized murder. He wants like the perfect murder.
And there's definitely a Nazi vibe to what he considers like one of his perfect murders as well, as we will see. The gassing. It's like it's dark shit, like this guy.
Very, very dark.
But I also think like it's so interesting that you bring up like Mabuse in like relation to Caligari, because don't we have a sort of also this transition from the pre-modern to the modern in these two characters? Like Caligari is definitely a more pre-modern character, whereas Mabuse sort of makes much more use of like television and radio, right? And
absolutely,
which are also like again, these are sort of intelligence and psyop tools of the era, and as we mentioned before, and as we will see time and time again, like the closer you get to the supposed center of this circle, of the magic circle, the more and more we find radio, exclusively almost radio operators and people with professional electricians of various kind, and we'll deal with that, like also like, I think like in terms of a history of ideas as well, like this fascination with electricity, I think is very interesting. Another interest is, of course, which you already alluded to, like with the smuggling. This is pre-code era, like the like really big sort of introduction of like gangster films, right, from Hollywood, showing people in Sweden like what car mounted criminality actually is. I think like I know at least two occasions where Tourneman is sort of convincing another person that like don't worry about getting caught, because like our cars are faster than the police, and it's like it has this sort of like a knight in shining armor sort of I don't know, alert to it, like that they're above the law because they have like the fastest cars and things like that, which is for sure like was, I guess, the general impression of like people like Al Capone at the time, like in Chicago and stuff. Like nobody can touch them. Al Capone for other reasons than having a fast car, obviously, but still.
It's so interesting the way that the like outlaw and gangster ethos of the United States and like that Prohibition and early Depression era time was reaching these individuals by way of these American cultural exports, and just goes to show like the intoxication of American cultural production
Yeah.
too. Like it's pretty dark that like
I mean,
the
you
way
must.
in which America's rubbing off on these Swedish youths is like convincing them to
Right.
carry out these ritualized, like these gangster-esque ritualized serial murders.
Yeah, it's fucked up, man. Like when you saw that photo, like later down, right? Like of the fun fair, where we, as we will see, like is where the guru meeting takes place. You see those young boys in their outfits, like that's a picture that could be taken in America for sure, like just outside of Chicago, I think. On page 7, it is. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So okay, like last paragraph here before we get to the first murder. Then I'm now thinking maybe you want to read that, since I've been talking a lot, and it's like a romanticized but true crime fiction piece, right? I think we should mention the just before, like right, like so we did mention this thing about like Tunemanden. As you know, this is a name that he picks for himself, and I suggested that there is some discussion about whether it really means manhunter or not. But like just and we will be quoting like the forensic psychiatrist later on quite a lot. But it's here's just a few lines here when he asks him, but to stand and shoot a person, is it enjoyable? And Tuneman replies, yes, it's like a hunter chasing his prey. And he says, you felt like a hunter? And then he replies, yes. And that we have this sort of, fascination with the perfect murder, and that, these things at an early age, like we have a lot of like the influence from cinema, from these books, and this revival of like bourgeois Indomania, which already started like, under Napoleon. That like, there's something interesting about especially Egypt, like Egyptomania and Indomania is like merging. And we're also introducing electricity and radio and all these sort of mysterious scientific inventions, which are doing things that like an occultism based on like alchemy, for example, it can't come close to like the magic that you can produce with like, ghost photography, for example. Like it's if you already have people who believe in this stuff, and it's much easier to believe in it when it's new and nobody can explain why something might be a fake. There's no like way really of, I think, debunking almost a ghost photography in the early days of ghost photography. I mean, some people tried, but it's going to be difficult to explain shutter time and light in a physical manner to a person at these days.
Yeah, no, it took like photography experts to combat that kind of, those ghost photography snake oil salesmen. And also it makes me think of like Houdini's crusade against psychics and mediums. And seances, which I bring it up because we'll get to this later, but I believe there's also a society for psychical research connection.
Really? The British one?
Yes, I believe. Though its Danish counterpart, again, via this possible guru for tournament.
Okay.
So I also found that very interesting because
sure.
The Society for Psychical Research is a fascinating group, and also very germane or on theme, what with like Tourneman's exhibited abilities of like hypnosis and telepathy and the like. But also like what you were saying to those like early modern psychological conditions of the era. At that time, with the advent of things like electricity and radio, it genuinely would have felt, and like the telephone, it would have felt magical in a way to many people.
Definitely.
Right? Especially like older generations who had more of that kind of like pastoral existence.
I mean, we see like some of the people they kill don't even have electricity in their house, like they only use like a photogen. I don't know what that's called in English, but photogen? No. Well, like those gas lamps, right?
Right.
Sorry for breaking you off, but like, that's
No, you're good.
Yeah,
I'd made my point.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and we can end the intro, I think, on that point. Like that, for example, long before he became Tuneman, Sigvard Nilsson, which was his original name, like when he was 14, like to the great surprise and admiration of his parents, like he built a telephone in their house, apparently. And he was like talking about like its connection to like telepathy. So
he had his own little proto god phone.
And I think like I wrote like just I was fiddling with this sentence for quite a bit, like to end the intro. But I think that we can safely say like that, like in the 20s and the 30s, like everything was open for suggestion, right? Like that's sort of where we are in time, and that is what they're exploiting.
We knew the joy